What's up, everybody? Welcome to System Crafters Live. I'm David Wilson, and we're back with another Friday stream where we get together as a community, and I can't speak correctly, and we talk about whatever interesting topic I've concocted for the week. And this week is no different. Before we jump into it, I'd like to say hello to some folks who have joined so far. That would be Drashal, Case, Daigo, Peter, and Dean. Nice to see all of you. Thanks so much for being here today. So let me know if you see any weirdness with the streaming. I just saw some glitchiness on the YouTube feed. I'm not exactly sure what's going on there. Is it just the video being a little bit choppy, or is that just on my machine? Actually, it seems like I'm going like 100% CPU. Let me check out what's going on here. Yeah, Firefox is taking 30% somehow, as usual. Let's close that window. Okay, maybe it's a little bit better. Not better. I have to be able to watch the stream. Hello to Rostislav, Fikri, Ethan, Richard. Nice to see you all. Peter asks, is Twitch still borked? I don't know. Twitch should be live right now. Man, wow. I got like serious CPU usage issues right now. Don't want to have to kill Firefox, but I might have to. Okay, give me 1 second, folks. I apologize for this. You know, I've got a better streaming setup. It doesn't really look like it at the moment, but I think things are going to be a lot better from here on. Hello to Colin. Okay. Let me check Task Manager inside of Firefox to see which tab it is. It's just killing my CPU. Restream.io. Oh, no wonder. It's showing my stream in another window. Is that all it was? Okay. 32% on YouTube, 15 on something else. Okay, I think that it should be a bit better now. I'm watching to see if the feed improves at all. I don't know. It's a little bit choppy on the video end. I'm not sure exactly what's going on with it, but oh, Firefox is still complaining. Got too many windows open to have crap happening in them, I think. Oh, it looks slightly better. Okay, anyway, let's get to it. I don't want to delay anymore. So, updates. Wow, jump right to the next slide. So, a few things happened this week, actually, which are kind of cool. First of all, there is a new Emacs Mastodon instance. So I'm sure that many of you have heard about the very interesting things happening with Twitter these days, where there is a rich person who decided that he wanted to be king of Twitter, and he bought Twitter, and now everybody's leaving because he's either firing them or they're quitting because they don't want to work there, which, yeah, is understandable. So because of that, a lot of people have been looking for alternative places to go hang out and find people of similar interests. And Lewis Brower, who's someone who's been, following the channel for a while and has, interacted on, IRC and in videos and whatnot, sent me an email. Sorry, Lewis, I didn't reply because I have been kind of slammed this week. But he created an Emacs Mastodon instance at emacs.ch. Some of you have probably heard of this already. Let me pull up Firefox real quick and see if I can show this. Emacs.ch. So there's a lot of folks here already talking about Emacs, and quite a lot of interaction on posts, which is kind of interesting because you don't get so much interaction on posts on Twitter about Emacs. So it seems like this might be a pretty good community for chatting about Emacs as a replacement to Twitter. So definitely give it a shot. I'm actually not on this instance because I already have an account on Fosstodon, fosstodon.org/DavidWill. So you can find me there, but I don't know. I don't know how it works to move an account to another server. I don't know that I even want to move really, but I'm interested in what's happening there because it seems like, people are having a lot of fun. So that's cool. So definitely check that out if you are interested in a Twitter-like place to interact with more Emacs fans like ourselves. So let's see. Let's look at GLFW docs right now. Where's my, oh boy. Now I got to get my my Emacs back on the right screen. There we go. All right, cool. Another thing that was interesting that happened this week. EXWM actually had another release, and I think there's some decent bug fixes going into this one, maybe some other improvements as well. Let's go take a look really quick at the repo, because I don't know exactly. EXWM issues. Did I search for that? Let's see. GitHub. Is it showing up? Right there. Okay, cool. So it got bumped to version 0.27 about 8 days ago, and the number of commits since then, I mean, since the last release, 26. I mean, there's quite a few. It's pretty much all the things that happened this year. 32-bit visual for frame containers. Not sure what that's about. Let's see. Hide tab bar on floating windows. Kind of useful if you use tab bar mode. So there's a couple other things that happened. Set default visual depth and color map in sys-tray embedder window. Maybe if you're using the system tray in EXWM, that will be an improvement. Support setting system tray background color to current workspaces something. Anyway. Also, there's another one about like floating windows I saw that might be useful. So anyway, point being, there's been a new update. There is some activity on the project, which is awesome. A lot of the things that have come into this release seem to be from community contributors, like Steb Alien here. I think his name's Steven. Yeah, Steven Allen. So Steven and other people have been contributing, which is great because that means that EXWM is, getting some kind of maintenance and improvements. Someone asks, Ramses asks, wasn't the author of EXWM gone? The original author has not come back. Don't know what happened to them, but I hope they're okay. But Medrano Calvo here is, let's see, yeah, I don't have his actual name. I think it's Adrian is his name. But anyway, he's been keeping the lights on, at least, trying to merge PRs and ship releases. So this is when we have this new 0.27 release. I think I might try to use EXWM a little bit again because I kind of miss it. Erbsluft has been all right, pretty good, but there's some things that annoy the shit out of me. Excuse me for the language, but it is the truth that it annoys me that I'm kind of like wanting to just go back to EXWM because I had a pretty comfortable environment there. And now that I have 2 machines for streaming, not 1 machine as I did in the past, things are a lot more stable. So I might just use EXWM. We'll see what happens. I might try it in the stream, but maybe we'll see. Let me check the chat real quick. Let's see. Drishal asked, am I using Pulse Audio or PipeWire? I'm using PipeWire these days. Let's see. Fikri says, to be honest, I like your streaming setup last year. It's very elegant. Actually, like the one that sold me to Emacs. Yeah, well, I mean, I'm probably going to go back to the EXWM setup. Ashra says 100% CPU usage. Seems like there's no hardware encoding. Yeah, with OBS on an Intel graphics card on my other laptop, it's not happening. I would have to be in Windows probably for that to work. Ashra says you need to be a hardcore developer in quotation marks to support the Bluebird. Yeah, I'm not so hardcore. I'm not so hardcore working for somebody else. Oh, and L. Hausman says, moving servers is pretty easy on Mastodon. Also sets up a redirect. That's cool. Fellow worker John says, a reminder that Mastodon is federated, so you can totally join in on Emacs conversation on other servers. Yes, that's right. Good point to make. Because Mastodon is federated, you could be on any Mastodon server and still follow people on the Emacs.ch server. So if you want to follow Sachachua or anyone else who's on the Emacs.ch server, you could do that from any Mastodon account. So that's kind of nice. Let's see. Oh, no chat on video? Yeah, I tried to fix that earlier and it didn't work. I don't know why it didn't work. And Case also says, hey, nice R7RS tab. Yes, I've been scanning the Scheme RS R7 or R7RS spec recently. Anyway, back to the content here. So, also, since I'm still doing the GitHub Game Off 2022 game development competition or game jam this month, I will be streaming again this weekend, both Saturday and Sunday, around 11 a.m. UTC. Apparently, I can't do time zone calculations correctly. I'm starting at 1 p.m. my time, which apparently is 2 2 hours ahead of UTC. So it's 11 a.m. UTC, Saturday and Sunday. I'll be streaming for about 4 hours each stream, working on a 2D platformer game. I have not made as much progress as I really wanted to in this whole thing because of technical difficulties and bugs with my language mesh that I've been working on for this year. So we're going to see how much farther we can get in the next 2 weekends, but let's just see what happens tomorrow. If you're interested in watching live coding, especially game development, definitely come by and check that out on the Flux Harmonic channel, both on YouTube and Twitch. That's youtube.com/FluxHarmonicLive or twitch.tv/FluxHarmonicLive. Definitely check out those if you're interested. I'm happy to see everybody who drops by there. I really appreciate the support on that. And lastly, a cool way to support the channel would be to check out the book Mastering Emacs. It is a really in-depth resource for learning more about Emacs, covers a lot of the things that we haven't gotten to in the channel. The cool thing is that Mickey, the author of this book, has set up basically an affiliate link to help support this channel. So if you purchase a copy of Mastering Emacs using the link here below, masteringemacs.org/r/systemcrafters, then a portion of the sale goes to support the channel, which is really awesome. Gavin says yellow. I'm guessing that means hello. Hello, Gavin. Nice to see you. So definitely check that out if you haven't yet. A lot of people have picked it up already, which I really appreciate. Really awesome of you folks to support Mickey and also support the channel at the same time. Okay. That's all for all the updates and spiel. Let's get into it. So today we're gonna do something that's gonna be quite fun in my opinion, which is attempting to convert my existing Literate org-based configuration using Emacs to Guix Home. I've been talking about Guix Home for a while, and I've only sort of scratched the surface in the use in my own configuration because I just haven't put in the time to convert the rest of it. But I'm sort of getting to the point now where I'm so frustrated with how crappy my .files setup is and how hard it is to maintain and to keep up to date on multiple systems that I'm just like, all right, let's just do it. Let's get it done. I want to move everything to Guix Home and try to use things that way. And what motivated me to do this is that I just set up an Ubuntu 22 machine to use for work a couple days ago. And I was able to pull down my configuration, install Guix using apt-get because Guix is actually packaged for Debian, which means it's also packaged for Ubuntu now. I installed Guix via apt-get, and then I updated the Guix by using Guix pull, and then I pulled down my .files, and I was able to successfully apply my Guix Home configuration to that machine and use my Emacs setup from Guix. It took a little bit of tweaking because I had to sort of make some things work on that machine, but it really drove home to me the value of having something like Guix Home where you have kind of a better system for making reproducible and configurable, parameterizable, I guess you could say, configurations that work across multiple systems. So I want to put more effort in trying to get my configuration migrated over and then start making videos about Guix Home because I really feel like there's a lot of value to it and people might want to check it out and use it. I see a lot more people using Guix these days, so I'm hoping that 2023 will be a nice year for uptake on Guix in general. So things I would like to accomplish. Any files that I have that need to be symlinked into the home directory should be done via Guix Home and not via Stow or Dotcrafter. So I had been using Stow for a long time, which worked really well for taking a folder. Let me just actually point to some stuff in my .files so you can see what I'm talking about. So if I go to .files, I got a lot of stuff in this folder. I have my Literate configuration files here in .org files, and a lot of other just .files hanging around. An important thing would be this .config folder, which has a lot of other folders that get symbolically linked into my .config folder at the root of my home directory. So a lot of this stuff is just sort of standard configuration files for particular programs that I use that need to go into the .config folder. There's a lot of stuff there usually because many programs will configure. Sorry, I saw Ashraf's comment and I got distracted. So many of the programs that you use have their configuration in this .config folder. And if you want to have that in your .files repository and use a setup like I do, where I sort of symlink things instead of, use a bare repo or whatever, then why is it doing this? I've never seen it do this before until now. Let's just kill this buffer. Kill that buffer. Go away. All right. Let me try that again. .files. I updated some stuff and it started acting weird sometimes. Anyway, anything that I need from the .config folder here that I want to symlink, I should use Guix Home for that and not depend on Stow or my .crafter package that I had been working on. That was another thing that I had spent some time on maybe a year or more ago. And it's kind of fun to use, but I don't really have the time to maintain it to a level where it's going to be useful for me. I mean, it did work for me, but my situation is that I'm using like 3 different ways to manage my configuration right now. One is some of my stuff is symlinked using Stow, some of it is symlinked using .crafter, and then some of it is done using Guix Home. So I'm just trying to centralize on one thing so that I don't go crazy every time I have to sync configuration between multiple places. Let me answer again the question about why am I moving away from literate configuration. First, I'm going to take a little sip of tea here. So for me, literate configuration has become more and more of a headache because I have to tangle all my configuration files every time I sync between machines. And I have to like add files in my get ignore list if I want to keep them from being checked in because they're being generated by my org files. There's just a lot of headache there. And also, I'm just sort of tired of having to edit things inside of org source blocks. Obviously, you can go into like org special edit mode and have like a separate buffer to edit the snippets of code. But really what I want is just to go back to just editing plain code files and, reduce some of the headache that I have because I don't have a whole lot of time to be tweaking around my configuration anymore. My configuration works great for me in a lot of cases, and I don't really have to touch it very often. But if I ever do change anything, it's hard for me to get it synchronized across machines because of all the moving parts. So I'm trying to reduce the amount of complexity that I have in here. Ethan says, why not a bare git and literate configurations? Because of that, I don't want to have to deal with tangling. Now you could say, tangle the output, check it into the repo, and just have that be a bare repo so everything shows up in the right place. Maybe so. Maybe people do that. Maybe that's fine for them. But also, I do want to use Guix Home more because I think it's great. So that's why I'm sort of moving that direction. You don't have to do that. Nobody else has to do that. Obviously, if you are curious about Guix Home, definitely you should try it. But if you're happy using a literate configuration in the way that you have it set up, definitely keep doing it. PCal says, +1 for abandoning literate configurations. Yes, I think it's about time for me to do that. I'm a little bit fed up, so. All right. What else am I saying here? Stop using individual manifest files. That's one thing I was doing a lot in my configuration is I have all these manifest files that get generated. Like for instance, in my Emacs.org file, I'll have these sections where I'll have Git or Guix packages that these pieces sort of get put out into a single config Guix manifest Emacs file. So this whole file is getting generated from an org file, and this is what gets used to install all of my Emacs packages. I kind of would rather just have them directly in the config and not have to go do all this. So, we're going to try to move away from using these manifests and actually move this stuff into my home config. Richard says, I may or may not have a literate config for my Nix home setup. Well, I mean, that's a fine thing to do if it works. I mean, a literate config would be just fine because if you tangle to the home configuration files and just run your config from that, then it's probably okay. But I just don't want to have to maintain the literate files anymore. I'm a little bit tired. All right. So let's get back to the org file here. Improve my desktop environment home service, make it configurable. So I have the main home service that I have right now is I do tangle on save, but tangle on save isn't good enough because whenever you sync to another machine, you have to open the file and save it so that it gets tangled, or you have to have a script that can go tangle these things. This is the main problem I'm talking about. So I guess to clarify that would be helpful. Tangle on save is fine. But if you have to go to another machine, then you still have to tangle those files out because you may already have edits on those files that haven't been checked in yet. So you have to like merge all the conflicts and then retangle them. It's just a major headache. I tend to not keep things checked in. I'll just make edits to my config and just sort of leave it there in the repo and not commit them, which is not good practice, but it's the way that I work, so I can't really help that. So I'd rather just have normal code. Ashra says, if the focus is code, then write code. If the focus is text, then write a text and sprinkle some code blocks. Yeah. They are not literate, said they only add headlines but no prose reason. Yeah, that is something I see sometimes. It's just people just have a big org file with headings and code blocks. Better just have comments in a code file in that case. Karen says, you either have a literate conf as a full-blown website or you just write normal code, no in between. I think you can have a website generated from code. I still want to do that, but I need to sort of figure out the right tools to use to do that. I'm not so sure that what I was doing with Emacs is the right thing to do. Anyway, also create some other home services. I need to sort of split some behavior out. Maybe let's just talk about this when I get into it, because I don't want to like talk too much. Let's just get into the code. I also want to archive my old .org files. Let's just move them out of the way. I want to start fresh. I want to have things be coming from Guix Home and see how it goes from there. So whenever we're finished with all this stuff, I plan to check in all these changes into the master branch of my .files repo. I've been sort of limping along in this Guix Home branch of my repo for over a year now, and I'm just sort of tired of that too. So we're going to merge it, make it master, and if the site goes down for my configuration, I don't care. I'll figure it out. I need to, like, you know, get it back together at some point. I still need to figure out how I'll make it into a website, but that's a problem for another day. It's a would-be site, apparently. Obviously, I checked this in half-written because I was in a hurry earlier. Okay, so let me show you what my actual home config looks like right now, so that you can see sort of where we're going from. .files. So in my .files folder, I have a folder called David Will. That's my username, usually. And this is basically a module path. So the way that I'm using Guix Home, if you check out my .bin folder, update home. So when I call Guix Home, I'm using the -L parameter to add my .files as a load path directory for Guix, which means that inside this folder, this is actually being treated as a Guile scheme module folder now. So inside this David Will folder, I have various different modules that are in here. Even my individual system configurations are modules. So like the config for this particular system, Phantom, is here. It's a module that's defined in Guile scheme. And it works pretty well to do it like that. I kind of like it. It also means that because I have it set up like this, you could, in theory, add my .files repo as a channel in your Guix config and pull out packages or other things that you might want. But I don't necessarily recommend doing that because I don't recommend, depending on the things that I do in my personal config, I would probably want to put those into shared packages or something before I wanted people to use them. PCal says, depending on your standards, using HTML fontify buffer could be enough. Yeah, that is what I was trying to do with the .weaver code. But I think what I want to do goes beyond what the fontify buffer does. So I might want a little bit more of a custom solution. All right. So I have some home services already, like my desktop service, but this is sort of like a dumping ground for a lot of stuff that needs to be split out into their own services. Like, for instance, the way that I set up PipeWire should probably be a separate service. And the reason why I want to make it a separate service is that for certain machines, I don't actually want to pull in PipeWire the way that I do here, because on Ubuntu, it seems that using PipeWire from Guix doesn't play nice with the other parts of the environment. So I might want to just let Pulse Audio take care of everything on that machine, but then on my actual Guix system machines, I would use PipeWire for sure. So certain things like that need to be split out to separate home services, which is fine. It's not so hard to do that. And other things like maybe syncing or running GPG agent, those could all be separate home services. And maybe there's other functionality that I have that could be their own home services as well. So we'll look into that a little bit as we make some more progress. Colin, I wrote a whole blog post about it. Colin, yes. So I recognize your name now. I wonder why your name sounded familiar. I think I did see your blog post about that. Yes, mClearC. All right. So what else was I going to say? So what I want to do as far as migrating my other configuration aspects, the two things that are sort of the most central to my configuration are the Emacs.org file, which has the majority of my Emacs configuration, and then the desktop.org file, which has my, well, it has a lot of the stuff that I have for my desktop environment configuration, but it's sort of been spread out a little bit more now. So I want to continue the migration of these things and just stop depending on this file entirely. So let's get started with it. Let me think how I want to proceed. All right, so first of all, let's go into the desktop.scm file. One thing I haven't really done yet is set up a proper configuration structure for the desktop service. What do I call it? The home desktop service type. The thing about Guix Home is you can have configuration objects, which is basically what this default value here should be. Like you would have a default value which points to a configuration object, and then a person could give a configuration object to the service type to configure it such that they set certain parameters that may be different on different machines. And this is something that I actually do have to deal with. For instance, things like fonts or DPI settings, or maybe the background image that gets used in the desktop environment, various different things like that. So I think we probably would want to start there. So let me think about, there's a couple things I have that there might be good starting points. So notes, talks, Guix Home. Where is that talk? Is it not here? Home config, introduction Guix Home. There it is. All right, cool. So this is the notes from the talk I gave at the Geeks birthday event. I have some stuff in here that might be useful for this because I did some work on my config then, and I didn't really, roll it into my own stuff yet. So this is a place where we will start doing that. Okay. So define configuration. Yeah, define configuration seems to be the thing you can use for this in Guix. I think it's a macro that basically just creates a record type. And if I go into desktop, I need to think a little bit about the right way to do this. It seems I did actually split out the X settings D configuration to its own object, which is not a bad thing to do. Yeah. So probably I just need to rip off these things that I had already started doing. So home X settings D service type. Where did I set that up? Ah, here it is. Okay. Home X settings D configuration. Okay, so let's copy this stuff just to jumpstart things a little bit here. And I'm going to go into a separate folder here, home services X settings D.scm. I'll paste in this code and I'll grab things here. X settings D. So what else? I need to have the services configuration module. Wow, come on now, Lispy. Don't do that. Lispy does not like these use module directives in Dial. Fonts, that's okay. So let me just explain what's going on here. This define configuration is defining the configuration, well, a generic configuration object more or less, but in this case we are making it for this X settings D service. We are defining the configuration parameters for this configuration type, the DPI, which is an integer, and the documentation string that sort of describes it. Also, the name of the theme that you want to use, the font you want to use, monospace font, and then maybe any extra content you want to inject into the configuration file. And this is all being used for the X settings D program, which is kind of a not very well known settings daemon for Xorg. it's kind of below the radar because it's so simple. Like, it doesn't have any flashy bells and whistles. All it does is just set up your Xorg environment to have the right font, DPI, etc., using a simple configuration file. This generate X settings D file actually takes this configuration object and generates the configuration file that all of these settings would indicate. So the theme name, font name, DPI, etc. So all these things that we have up here in the configuration, we can access those fields for the config object using these accessor methods. So one thing that Scheme does with record types is, well, at least it depends. Scheme implementations vary on this, but at least in the case of what define configuration does, you automatically get accessor methods for this object type that end in the name of the field. So in this case, like if we were to look for this DPI, there is a home X settings D configuration DPI function or procedure that when you give it an instance of a configuration object of this type, it will give you back the information from that field. So what we're doing here is just taking that configuration object, using all the accessor procedures to extract the information from the config, and then using it to generate a string that can be turned into a file in the actual service. Now there's the X settings D files service. I'm trying to think about how much I want to go into details on Guix Home right now, but the idea here is that this is basically just returning it's a function that returns a list of files for this service that need to be generated. This one would be the config/xsettingsd/xsettingsd.conf file, which is sort of the place where xsettingsd expects to find the configuration. And we're giving it a sort of plain text file with the result of calling that generate xsettingsd file function procedure on config. So this is just saying, here's how we plan to generate the configuration file for this xsettingsd service using a configuration object. The home xsettingsd profile service returns the list of packages that need to be installed for this service, which is one of the nice things about Guix Home is that you can, with a home service, you can independently say which packages that service can install. So you don't have to have like a big list of packages for all the things you want to use. What you really need is just a list of home services for the different things that you want to configure in your system, and those individual services will pull in the packages that they need for that functionality. So that's kind of a nice way to split up the various concerns of your configuration into different places so that you don't have to think too much about which packages you pull in. You just pull in services instead. Also, the xsettingsd shepherd service, which is a procedure that returns a list of shepherd service, I guess record instances, which basically says that we want to run the xsettingsd program as a shepherd service, a user level shepherd service. So whenever you apply your Guix Home configuration with this service, xsettingsd will be running in the background whenever you log in, which is kind of nice. And then finally, the home xsettingsd service type. So we basically just put all these things together. Service type is home xsettingsd, and then the list of extensions is basically all these functions that I just told you about before. There's a list of functions that are given via service extension, the profile service type, the shepherd service type, and the files service type. These are service types that Guix Home knows about. So whenever you say I have an extension for the profile service type and it's this function, whenever Guix Home says, okay, it's time to create the profile, let me find all of the extensions of a particular type, this profile service type, call all of their functions to get the list of packages, aggregate all those together, and then apply that list of packages to the user profile. So that's basically what's happening here. We're just saying that for this home service, there's this list of extensions, and then whenever it's appropriate to use this particular extension function, then it will get called to generate the necessary configuration aspects. And the default value here would be the blank home xsettingsd configuration, which that's a procedure call which instantiates an instance of the home xsettingsd configuration. Obviously, I haven't slept enough. So the defaults will all be from the fields that we've configured here. The integer 180 here basically says that DPI has a default value of 180 and it's an integer type. So if you don't provide any parameters, it would just use all the default values, but you can override those by passing them in basically like this, I think, DPI, 420. So that is basically how you set up a home service. Now, I decided to put this together in its own service type just because it would be nice to contribute this to the actual Guix repository so other people can use it. So that's why it makes sense to sort of split it out separately. But it just kind of feels weird to pull this in as an xsettingsd service type. It might make more sense to aggregate this at a higher level so that I have sort of reusable functions that pull in various different services. So we might look into how I would do that too. All right, so now that we've got this thing in place, we could try to use it actually. And I'm not sure exactly what's going to happen with it, but we'll see. In here, we definitely want to export the home xsettingsd service type. We may have to export the accessor methods for all the other stuff too, which is going to be a little bit annoying, but let's see what happens. So okay, that's working. Let me just paste this in. All right, so xsettingsd configuration. I might not need to do all the accessors. Well, let's leave that out for now. Xsettingsd service type and then the configuration, that might be enough for this module. So if I go back to my desktop config, I could try to replace what I have here. Let's see, home desktop service type. And then in, let's see, systems common. I think I pulled together a list of services. So these are like the common services that I want to use on all systems, which might change because there's certain things I don't necessarily want to use on all systems. So we have the home batch configuration, and then down here we have the desktop service type. So I can leave that there, and I can also add service home xsettingsd service type. And I think I just put in home xsettingsd configuration here. And then DPI. Well, I don't want DPI actually. And here's the reason why. Because I would have to have parameters of this function to set that up. And I kind of don't want that. So let me think about a better way to do this to use it across machines. And to tell you more about what I mean, we go to the phantom.sem file and look at my home configuration here. And I'll mention again, I may have mentioned it before in the past, the way that I set this up is different than what you would normally see in a home config because I'm actually putting my home and system configs for the same machine in the same file. So you can see I have defined home, and then I'm storing the result of home environment. I guess that's a struct initialization, record initialization. In the home variable, I'm doing the same thing for operating system with the system variable. And then I check an environment variable to see if we're running Guix Home, which is an environment variable that I'm using in my update home script. You can see right here at the beginning, running Guix Home 1. That's how I know that I actually want to update the home config and not the system config. So I just switch out which one gets returned, because what Guix does is it loads up the file that you tell it has your configuration, and it expects for that file to result in a home environment record, and then that gets used to do everything. But this is scheme code, so you can sort of play with that a little bit and make it do more of what you want. And in this case, I'm returning the home config only if this running Guix Home environment variable is set. Otherwise, I return my system config so that Guix system can apply the system configuration. I know, a lot of information, maybe not so relevant to you if you aren't using Guix Home yet, but this is me talking about me converting my config. So I'm just sort of trying to clarify things as I go. So the point that I wanted to make in this file is that for this machine, for my services, I actually only have my common home services list, but I actually want to do more than that. Let's see, append. So common home services is a list. It's a variable that stores a list. If we go back to common, we'll see that common home services is just a public definition for a variable that stores a list of services, right? I can use append to, it's kind of REPL. Guix. Where's the REPL? Oh, I like to use a Guix REPL for some of this stuff instead of just using the Guile REPL. But why is it not showing me anything? Let's see, Guix. Oh. That's just a Guile REPL. Whatever, I can do it here. So append 1, 2, 3. Let's see if it lets me do it. Okay, so it lets me with just a single list. Then I could do 4, 5, 6. All right, cool. So that's basically what we need to do. And I'm showing you this because this is just a normal scheme function, append. You could append two lists together. So in this case, I want to append common home services with whatever else that I decide to put in. So I can have common home services, and then I can have a list that has other services, like for instance, that home X settings D. But I kind of want to do a little bit better than that. And I might have a function that allows me to set some desktop environment stuff a little bit more easily. So let me think about how I would want to do that. This is kind of the fun part because this is all just code. You can do whatever you want. So you get to think about this in terms of code and not in terms of like, oh, how do I make org mode work the way I want it to? So Arpana says, can you set Z shell aliases and plugins with Guix Home? Yes, you can. There is a Z shell service. Okay, so let me just start simple maybe, and then I can try to do things a little bit better. Here I'll say list home X settings D home service. Is that what it's called? I'll also have to pull that in too. So come on now. So let's see. Home services X settings D. And then in the home service, I think I have an edit in the desktop.scm file right now. Let's see, where is it? Right there. And my DPI is 140 that I'm setting here. So in this case, I'm going to say DPI is 140. I think it's a different value by default in the xsettingsd.scm file. Yes, 180. So we'll be able to tell pretty fast. The camera is probably lagging at parts, Euclidean, because of CPU on my streaming machine. All right, so. Oh, I also need to use the home X settings D configuration there and wrap that DPI in it. So let's see. We might be able to try this really quickly and see what happens. This could be a total crash and burn type thing. Also, what I could do is use a container. Double check things before we actually apply it to this machine because we don't want to break stuff. It's not so dangerous now because I'm using a different machine for streaming, so I can do whatever I want here and it won't really hurt anything, but you know, let's be safe anyway. So I'm gonna just sort of hard code some of these things here. Instead of reconfigure, Guix Home reconfigure, I'm gonna use Guix Home container just so we can take a look at what the output would be. All right, so let's see, what did I do wrong here? Common home services unbound variable. The thing is, it's not telling me which file these things are coming from, and I'm getting a lot of different errors because I'm loading my module folder. All right, so they all say they're errors. Okay, Phantom 1514, common home services unbound variable. So if I go back to Phantom, I do have systems common, but I think usually what that means is there's an error in common. So I must have changed something here that it didn't like. Yeah, this is making it not very happy. So let's take that out and then go back to shell, run it again. Home service unbound variable. Let's see, what did I call it? X settings D service type, my bad. That's gonna be in Phantom. That's X settings D service type. Okay, so append common home services and then the service type. Let's give it a shot again. Wrong type to apply. Service type home X settings D. Maybe I messed something up. Common home services. What is this? Oh, I need to wrap it in service. That's right. So if I do this service. Let's try that again. Once again, not happy. Line 16. So list service, maybe I should write that out and see what it looks like. I just display this. So display, here are the services. Let's see if this actually does anything. Let's take the config out maybe and see if that makes it any better. Also X settings D, yeah, home X settings D service type. And I'll also try removing the common home services. Let's just get it back to only being service here. Or in fact, let's just do that first. See what that does. Why is it not actually displaying the record type? Remove the second param from service home. Oh, is it? Can't be that, right? Is it that? Maybe you're right. Okay, you are right. Thank you very much, Jonathan Pieper. Because clearly I haven't been writing enough code using Guix Home. So this is why I'm doing this stream, because I need to do some practice. All right, still says wrong type to apply. Let me remove this stuff here. Home X settings D service type, list service. Oh, all right, we got something different this time. That's good. Guile stack traces are just nutty. I don't really like the way they look because they're very hard to digest. Yeah. Unbound variable. Where did I do that? Oh, okay. Yes. Okay, that makes sense. I didn't actually pull in the package correctly. You know what? Let's change this because I don't like having to pull in package modules. I'm going to do something different here. I'm going to use what is it? Specification to package. And I'm going to use X settings D here. In fact, let's do this instead. Wow, don't do that. Map. We're going to map specification to package over the list of just string packages here. So let's have X settings D there. Let's try that now. Wrong type. Something else here. Duplicate A entry for files and arguments. Let's look at that. A? That doesn't seem right, does it? Oh, in the config? Expecting exact integer. Is it what I put in for the... Sounds like Ashra is going to have a fun Christmas time. Troubleshooting issues for parents. Okay, so what did I do wrong here? Let's take a look at common and look what I'm doing with other fields. Also, Guix service configuration. Let's see if I can look up how this is working. Oh, service types and services. Configuration. Maybe this is not what I want to look at right now. Finding services. Service reference. Oh. Service type. Configuration. Using the configuration system. Okay. Is that right? Maybe not. Let's go to the programming index. what is it called? Define configuration? Define oh, come on now. Configuration. Define record? Record? Why is it not showing up in the... let's see. Google does not give you the develop documentation yet. So is it here? Develop. Configuration. Oh, here it is. Is that new? Okay, create a record type named name that contains the fields found in the clauses. So tell me about these types. Type default value. Type is a type of value corresponding to field name. Predicate procedure type question mark will be called on the value corresponding to the field. I see. So does... There must be an integer. Let's see. Dial ripple. Oops. Okay, there is an integer procedure. Cool. But maybe that's not what the problem is here. You know, it would be nice if this error message was a little bit clearer. Wrong type, expecting exact integer. And it looks like it has to do with the xsettingsd file service. Who knows where it's going in there? Let's see. Let's do some print debugging. Display in the files service. Maybe I write the same file elsewhere. Ah, good point. Because I do. It's absolutely right. Thank you to Jonathan for diagnosing the issue. So I'm already doing this somewhere else in the desktop.scm file. So let's take that out. xsettingsd. xsettingsd. I'm going to take this file out of here. Let me delete this the right way. Okay. So X session is the only one we'll have there. I actually probably want to make that part of the Guix Home config too, because there's certain things I don't want in X session on different machines, like if I use a different desktop environment or something. So I can take this DPI out now. That's cool. And now if I run the config again, maybe it will be happy. Oh, there it goes. One thing that's not so nice about Guix Home sometimes is that it takes a long time before it can finish building a profile because of all the packages that are in there together. And I think part of the reason is I'm using this silly thing I was doing before with, let's see, which Phantom, where I have the list of manifests. I don't want to do that anymore. In fact, let me just cancel this. So I will take out this packages list because I don't really want to have to do it that way. In fact, I'll explain. Gather manifest packages is my own function. Gather manifest, where is it? Right here. Which basically, for each symbol you give it, it looks up a manifest file with the same name, and then it reads it in. It turns all the packages there into a package list, and then it lets you install them all at the same time. And that was just sort of like a stopgap for me whenever I needed to migrate my configuration really quickly. But I don't want to do that anymore. So we're going to take that out here, which means that the configuration we apply is going to be a lot simpler. It's going to have a lot less packages in it. So I'll have to move some things around. Let's see. What else might I need to do then? Because I need to configure Emacs. The desktop home service has Emacs in it, but I might need to split that configuration up a little bit more, but we'll deal with that later. So I took that out right now mainly to speed up the profile generation because it might take a long time otherwise. So then if I go into desktop, we can see what list of packages that I'm using. Pretty small right now. Erbsluft, Rofi Polybar, some other tools that are needed for general desktop environment stuff. Player control, Emacs, threw Emacs EXWM in there a little bit. PipeWire, Wire Plumber, these need to go into their own thing. So maybe we can start doing that. PipeWire.sem. So let's make a new service for that while we're waiting on the profile to build. And I'll go into PipeWire. Let's see. Some of these things can probably go away. I don't know which things will be ultimately necessary, but we'll see for now. And then in desktop, it's all the same stuff usually. So I can take where I think it's PipeWire and Wire Plumber that I need. So PipeWire and Wire Plumber. And let's see, we'll put PipeWire here. Also PipeWire here, because we do need to run PipeWire. And I'm going to go into the desktop file and steal the things that I needed for that. So let's take this part, because that's some also configuration that might be needed. I kind of ripped this off from the RDE repo because they have a good PipeWire config. So that's where that came from. So we'll put that over in this file. Also for the Shepherd services, I have something for PipeWire in there as well. Yeah, so there's a set of these that need to go away. So I'm gonna get rid of these right here. So there's PipeWire, PipeWire Pulse, and Wire Plumber, I think, for, oops, all those parts. Grab this. Okay, I think probably enough right up. Right here. I wish I could say go to the green parenthesis. Okay. Paste it here, and then I'll go grab Shepherd services, config, go up here. Drop that in, wrap it, and this needs to be a list, so I can put these into the list. Oops. All right, that gives us what we need for at least these services. And I can also see for, let's change everything X settings D to PipeWire. That stuff needs to go away. I don't think we need any files for this, if I'm not mistaken. I'm not writing any files out, so let's get rid of that. Let's continue with the renaming. Okay, so configures and runs the PipeWire audio system. Okay, we had a failure here, which I'll have to look into in just a second, but for now we'll keep on creating this PipeWire service. So I took out the file service. I only need the Shepherd service. Whoops, let's do Shepherd service and the profile service. I also need that XDG configuration service. Wait, hold up. Home. Let me see where I was using that. XDG. Okay. So I'll put that in here also, right about here. And that's home PipeWire XDG configuration service. I'll just drop this, or rename these things PipeWire. So that should be enough to get the profile service, the Shepherd service, Shepherd. Why do we have two of them? Because wait, what? makes sense. Let's get rid of that. And then services, let's just get rid of the S on the end of that. All right, I think we're good on that. So we have now a separate PipeWire service that can be pulled in. And it's also been exported. I'll get rid of the configuration object, so we actually don't need that. And then I can go down to configuration. Oh, let's get rid of that too. Right here, default value will be F because we don't actually need any kind of configuration for that. Okay, so now I should be able to go into Phantom and add a new service for the PipeWire service type. And I don't need any configuration. I can just delete that and put it up on another line. And then I need to import the module for that as well. So if I put PipeWire here, that should do the trick. Okay, now let's take a look at the build output, because now we need to figure out what went wrong in the build. Okay, oh, no space left on device. I think I'm out of inodes. Wow. If that's legitimate. So, what is the command for that? Linux check free inodes. This is a problem that you see often in Guix, because it creates so many symbolic links that it seems like your disk is full when it actually isn't. All right, so df-i/ inodes used. Yeah, looks like we've basically used up all the inodes. All right, so we got to run Guix GC now. I think I have a command for that. So yeah, you're learning some things here now, because you get to see me have to actually manage my system here. So eShell alias. I have an alias for this. Yeah, sudo Guix GC -d. Let me do this in vterm. Sudo Guix GC d7d. So we're basically trying to clean up any old profiles and packages that have been around for a long time, and you're going to see how much actual space this stuff takes up. There's a lot of stuff installed in the system for all the old profiles that I have. We'll see how long this takes. It may not take that long. It's a good thing I figured this out now and not tomorrow while I was trying to do game streaming and didn't realize what was happening. Thank you, Rostislav. All right, so that was 120 megabytes. Nice. 2 hours later. Yeah, hopefully it doesn't take that long. We're just deleting the trash now. I'm so happy I'm not doing this on the same machine that I'm running OBS, because that would have been a nightmare. Let's see. Let me just check on my process usage. Okay. Not much I can do. Well, I guess it moves things to the trash first and then deletes them. 120 MIB, not 120,000 MIB. That's a good question. It can't be right though. That unit cannot be right for this. Because otherwise, that would be way too much. Waiting. All right, let's move on to some other things while this is happening. So back to Phantom. So now we've got X settings D service type. We've got PipeWire service type. That's nice because I can split those things apart. I don't have to have them on the same machine anymore. Let's go into desktop and make sure that we extract all the PipeWire related stuff now. This is not needed here. I'll get rid of this whole function. If I can go to the end. All right, so I deleted that. And then all the PipeWire stuff is gone from that list. And then PipeWire, let's see, service extension. I think I've got it out of there too, so that's good. So now this desktop service is a little bit more focused on actual desktop environment stuff, which is good. And then, let's see. for my Emacs packages. It's something I haven't dealt with yet. And I'm trying to think of how I want to deal with configuring Emacs with Guix Home, because I think that going all the way and using Guix Home to configure Emacs seems a little bit weird. But there is sort of a happy medium, I think, that might be interesting. And that could be having different home services that represent different sort of vertical slices of behavior. So like the basic Emacs configuration that has its set of packages and a Lisp module file that loads in for that that behavior, and then other areas of configuration. Let's say my mail configuration can have its own home service. So in a machine that doesn't need mail in Emacs, say I don't pull in that home service and it just doesn't show up at all. I think there might be a way to have dependencies on other home services, but I'm not sure exactly about that. So let's see, dependency index. Package dependencies. This must just be package dependencies. All right, so service, yeah, whatever. So let's see. For Emacs, what would I do? Emacs.scm, maybe. Let's just have a file for that. It feels a little bit overkill, maybe to have a whole bunch of stuff in one file, but maybe sort of the base Emacs configuration could be in there. And one thing I had been thinking about actually is generating my main init.el file, but that may also be a little bit weird to do. But if we look at my emacs.d/init.el file, there's a lot of stuff in here, right? All of my configuration that came from that emacs.org file is in here. I think what I would do is maybe put them somewhere else. So what if I had instead like .files/davywill/home services/Emacs? It feels weird to put Emacs Lisp files in subfolders somewhere else, but I'm trying to imagine a way to make this work that makes sense. And this is sort of goes back to an idea that I had for crafted Emacs, where you might have personal modules. Like for instance, if you look at my emacsd/lisp directory, I have like dw.org that has some functions that are related to org mode. This thing could be its own sort of vertical slice of behavior, and it could use def vars at the top to allow it to be configured. Then in Guix Home, I could have configuration parameters for that sort of vertical slice of behavior that get, when you set those variables, they get written out to the main init.el file that's always generated. It's never handwritten. So that your Emacs config is basically just module files that then some arbitrary init file can load up. It might be interesting. We may not have time to do that whole thing though, because we may have to like do that another time. But we could still like approximate it, I think. So let me think of how I would do that. Sort of my default Emacs configuration, sort of my working environment with Vertigo, Consult, Embark. Those sort of basic core packages, I probably need that stuff. And I'm not using crafted Emacs at the moment, I'll have to say, because I never got back around to setting that up fully in my config. But I would probably do the same thing with crafted Emacs once I have that set up. So all the stuff that's here might end up going somewhere else. My actual emacs.d folder could be comprised of all that. Ashra says, I found that my relatively small configuration is rather tangled, cross-linked on other sections. Splitting it would lead to a lot of with eval after load in those files. Yeah, it could do that. That's for sure. If you have cross dependencies. All right. So if I were to make a basic Emacs config based on what I have in my init.el, what would it be? All this stuff comes from my my emacs.org file. So I could probably just copy the first chunk of this into its own file. So if I were to go all the way down, I got a lot of stuff that I've defined myself for straight. So some of the stuff like EXWM enabled, that could go into its own desktop module, I think. So I wouldn't necessarily put that in there. Also, starting the server could be something that would be parameterized. So if I did this, let's say David Will, home services, Emacs. Let's see. Emacs base.el. And some of the stuff can be there. Let's see. This I would take out because we may not need that now. Or it might be generated another way. This is a settings file that I actually generate from my org files. So if you look at lisp/dw settings.el, it loads up per system settings. So that goes to per system settings. And this is sort of like a big file that has A-lists for various settings that I want to use per system. And Emacs is able, or my Emacs config and my org files are able to sort of grab all this stuff and use it. Ismail says, did you try Guile Emacs? I have not tried Guile Emacs. So I would leave that out. I think. Let's leave out anything Termux related for now. Is Geek System? Probably leave that there. Thank God it's making progress here. Bootstrapping straight. Makes sense. Let's see. Straight use package. And this can go away. Geeks Emacs packages. Let's see, package if and is Geek System. Probably want to do nothing in that case. Let's delete that and just turn it into just false. Delay, disabled. User Emacs directory, like the cache file. Probably want that. Custom file, my Emacs load path. Yeah, I probably want to leave that there for now. Let's just leave that there for now. And then server start. So I also need to pull in my Vertigo configuration. Probably some other stuff here. Some of these things can stay out. All right, there's some more editing config stuff in here that needs to come into. Wow, I got a lot of stuff before Vertigo shows up. Evil config, yeah. All right, I think this is where we left off. Yes, I need this escape, otherwise I'm gonna go crazy. Undo tree, evil. Evil collection. Do I even use general? Okay. Looks like I'm gonna have to put that Termux thing back in. And the theme configuration actually could be parameterized, I think. And font settings can be parameterized. Font sizes can be parameterized. Let's see, Emojify. I don't know if I even need that anymore. Minions I use, Doom mode line. Tab bar, yeah, let's leave tab bar. Alert, autosave buffers, world clock. Yeah, a lot of the stuff I'm actually using. Parinfer I'm not really using. I should probably take that out, but Dot Crafter could go. And more org mode related things. Vertigo, Corfu, order list, consult, marginalia, embark. So I think right up to here. Let's keep it from here right now. And I'll go back and pull that Termux variable thing that I had here, because I probably I have a lot of stuff that's turned off my config. Memish says, do you upload YouTube and Odyssey different videos? My YouTube videos get automatically synced to Odyssey, but sometimes it doesn't happen. Okay, so that should be everything for a basic configuration. I'm actually kind of interested to see whether that will work. So if I were to go back to, let's see. Oh, wow. So it freed 134. What is that? Is that gigabytes in the end? Let me see what it says. Come on now. df-i/. All right, cool. So in use 15%. We're good now. dfh. And now I'm back to, where is it? On the root. Right there. 54%. I'm still using quite a lot. It's probably all the videos I've recorded for System Crafters. 131 gigabytes of crap. Nice. It just goes to show you that you should probably be running Guix GC a lot more often than I do. I don't know the last time I ran it. Probably never on this machine. Okay, so I want to have a base configuration. So let's say like base.scm. It feels a little bit vague to call it base, but let's go with that for now. And then the PipeWire config, I'll just steal some of the stuff from there. Home services, Emacs, base. Yes, that is the right link, I think, Memish. All right, so let's see. Home Emacs base profile service. This is where I'll try to add all the base packages that I use, and I probably should go into my emacs.scm manifest and just grab this list all the way up until that point. So if I were to take all this to right here, then it's quite easy to just drop them in right there and clean things up a little bit. So I can just go right up here and hit tab, then delete some new lines. I'll take out EXWM, I'll take it desktop environment. General, I'll leave. Okay, perspective, alert. Definitely need pen entry, but maybe pen entry is only needed in desktop environment configuration. Origami, I don't know why I have that in there. There's something else too that I want to remove. Infer. Okay, let's get rid of that too. Okay, so that looks like a good base set of packages to install. So I'll have the, I don't need a shepherd service, but I'll have a Emacs base profile service. This other thing here can go away too. I will want a file service though, because I need to write a file out to the config. In theory. And I might have to do something special for identifying all of the different configuration files that need to be pulled into the main init.el. But I could hard code that for now until I have a better solution. So I've got all this stuff. I can get rid of these other service types. And then change this to Emacs base. Jump up here to Emacs base. And then if I go into the Phantom configuration, then I can add the Emacs base in here as well. Service, home Emacs base service type. I would probably use different names for these. I mean, like the naming convention is, you know, service type, but it just seems too verbose. I don't like that too much. So let's also pull in our home services Emacs base. And then I'll try to run this and see what happens. I'll probably get some complaints at first, but let's see what happens. Okay. PipeWire Shepherd Service, unbound variable. XDG configuration services, unbound variable. Let's see. Home PipeWire Shepherd Service. Home. Oh, that's why. And then the other thing was desktop XDG. I think that's probably in the desktop file. Yeah, let's get that out of there. Hey, Alejandro, nice to see you. So then in this one, we only have the profile service for some packages, the Shepherd services for some things, the file service for just the X settings, or sorry, X session file, and then some environment variables with this sort of Java, JWT, whatever thing, which is apparently necessary for EXWM. Let's run it again, see what happens. All right, another problem. Home PipeWire service type, Phantom. I have PipeWire. Home PipeWire service type. Home PipeWire service type. Let's do this. Define public, and then take the export off because maybe I don't need. Home PipeWire service type. Daemon Home Services PipeWire. I have that. Some of these other errors are kind of like not real, so I just ignore them. So back in Phantom, line 20, it says that Home PipeWire service type is not available. Home Services PipeWire. So did I put that in the wrong place, maybe? Home Services, PipeWire to SCM, Home Services PipeWire. Then I have the export there. It's really weird that it's not showing up. Oh, pipe XDG configuration, PipeWire. Yeah, these errors don't really indicate the real problem a lot of times. Okay, now it's working. So let's see what it does. It might take a little bit more time than before because I added some more packages to the profile, but we'll see how far it gets. Maybe this time it will complete because there's space left on the machine. Why is it installing Ruby? What did I put in here that made Ruby installed? A lot of extra stuff. Oh. And a new version of Guix. Oh, okay. That makes sense because I actually did update my channels before. I'm curious to see how well this works. All we're really going to do after I get it installed is check the home folder to see if some of the files that we intended to be there are actually there and have the right values. libcaca. Doesn't inspire much confidence. All right, wait, what? Why are we installing PipeWire 027? Hold up. Trying to open up the Guix package list real quick and see if I can determine why it's going that far back. No prompt found. Fine. Let's go to vterm. And then Guix search PipeWire. In fact, I could probably just look at the repo. So yeah, 356, but it seems to be defaulting to 2.0. Where does Guix store the repo? libcaca transforms images into colored ASCII art. Okay, great. All right, let me see. Search PipeWire. Let's let it talk a little bit more here. Geeks Edit. That's the right thing. PipeWire. Okay, here we are. This is in GNU Store. All right, yeah, it's basically just a clone for the whole thing. So, inherit PipeWire 0.3. I think I should have done the other one. This seems to be the default. Okay, I need to fix that. So if I go back to eShell, we're trying to download things and failing. That's great. Colored ASCII art. Yeah, that's probably right, Alejandro. So I'll need to go to PipeWire to fix that. It needs to be PipeWire 0.3 and PipeWire 0.3. So let me see if I can just PipeWire to PipeWire 0.3. No, yes, no, 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 yes, yes. I'm having to go through and fix all references to the PipeWire 0.3 package name. Okay, that should do it. So we're having issues getting to the substitute servers. Updating substitutes from non-geeks. Okay. So we've been struggling with stream issues for the past few weeks, and part of the time it was my internet provider, part of the time it was my home network, and then apparently the most recent problems were coming from the fact that whatever server I was using for the restream service that takes my stream and puts it to both YouTube and Twitch, that server had a lot of latency issues, which was causing the stream to drop. So since I switched to using the one of the server instances in Europe, everything's been super solid. Like last weekend when I was streaming for the game competition, had no problems whatsoever. So I'm pretty happy with the 2-machine streaming setup now, because I can have a lot more stable system that I'm showing you on the screen and not have to worry about the stream going down because OBS crashes or EXWM crashes or anything like that. So kind of nice. I'm much happier. Man, it's taking forever. What's it doing? I don't know why it's having issues with substitutes. Let me see. Let's go into vterm. Let's see. Kill this file. Oh, which one is it? PipeWire. I thought that was done. All right, so nm CLI connection, is that right? Seems to be on. I think it ultimately ends up downloading these, even though it has this little, momentary blip. So hopefully we don't have to wait for these to build after it finishes. That's the danger of like doing geek stuff on stream, is that if for whatever reason it wants to build something, you're going to sit there forever. All right. Hopefully it finishes its stuff really soon here. There's a lot of packages, more than I expected. What else can we do in the meantime? Let's go back to the base configuration. Uh-oh. Audio streams current bitrate. Can you hear me right now? Because YouTube is telling me something about the audio stream's bitrate is 0. That's a very strange suggestion they had for me just now. Thank you for letting me know. Okay. I'm relieved. Okay. Cool. It looks like we're getting closer to this thing being finished. And what I was going to do is go back to the base.scm file here and take a look at all the stuff that I have installed. And we also need to put a file somewhere, I think. We have this base, Emacs base. I managed complete compression. That's right. I probably should file a patent on it. Maybe Elon Musk bought YouTube also. So I need to be able to load this into an init.el file. I also want to be able to load it into a fresh init.el file. No route to host. I think the CI server is going down or something. Now we're getting to the Emacs package. Great. So if I were to look at what I would expect this to be, if I go back to verify blue bit rates, yeah, that sounds right. So .emacs.d. Oh, I'm not even using .emacs.d, am I? Am I using .config/emacs? Is that what I'm doing? It's Emacs. Interesting. So then Emacs profiles. Cool. So I'm basically just using the default profile as my Emacs D folder. So maybe it's what? Maybe it's easier to switch this out than I thought. Corrupt input while restoring archived. Okay, I think something just blipped, so I'll run it again. Okay, PipeWire 03 unknown package. Well, that's a lie because I just saw it. Let me see. Guix edit PipeWire. Oh no, PipeWire.scm. Which file is that? Linux.scm. Okay, let's go back to Babel here. Name PipeWire. Okay. PipeWire at 03. Yeah, you're right. So I guess what that means is that I'm going to have to get the package by doing this. Define PipeWire. I'll take this out, I think. Specification to package. PipeWire at 0.3. Okay. Maybe that will take care of the thing. And if I do that, that also means, well, let's do this. And then the rest of the places where I already did that PipeWire -0.3. Let's do this. 0.3. Let's see if this works. I've never done that before, but we're going to find out. Wire plumber unbound variable. Where? Wire plumber. That's why. Okay. I don't think I can use a string there. I would be happy to know that I could if I... Let's see. I'll put that back so I have access to wire plumber. Ambiguous package specification. I guess I should probably be specific with it, but... Okay, so we don't have a whole lot of time left, so let's see. What was I saying I wanted to do in my notes? I said I wanted to symlink certain files, stop using individual manifest files, but we started doing that for sure. Now this is weird. I've never seen this problem before. Corrupt input while restoring archive, retrying download, module import compiled. Failed to find alternative substitute. Is the CI server down? Is that what's happening? Let me see if I can go there. What about github.com? Maybe the CI server is just down. Yeah, looks like CI server's down. Fantastic. Bordeaux. Geeks. Is that the host name? Okay, so that one's up. But I don't know if I have it set up. Can I use a command line option for this? Geeks help. Guix help, or Guix Home help. Artem has the same problem. Can't download anything. Yeah. Let's see. Substitute URLs. Fetch substitutes from URLs if they are authorized. Well, I don't know if it's going to let me, but maybe it will. So let's put that there, and then I'll just put this Bordeaux URL. See what happens. Hey, I think it's working. Good to have a backup. If we can at least get one application of this home config working, I'll be happy, but I would have preferred to get a few more things done. Or we're gonna build Shepherd now? Is that what's happening? I think this release just came out today or yesterday. I don't know why they wouldn't have a substitute artifact for that. Okay, we're still waiting. So I'm trying to think like what else I need for a base system. I don't need the desktop environment. I do need Emacs and the base packages for Emacs. I need the set of packages that I have to install for that. What else? I mean, that's pretty much it. I mean, I just need Emacs to start with, and then everything else is just, you know, added goodness on top. So Emacs base is good enough. EXWM, yeah. So Alejandro, I might switch back to EXWM in a minute. Not now on the stream, but it's been bugging me a little bit. So okay, yeah. Building a profile with 52 packages, it takes like 1 second per package, so we're gonna have to wait for a minute. Okay. We've got all this stuff in here. Let's think about how I would want to do this. Let's put it in the base config. I'm gonna make a file service that can write out a basic init.el file in the .emacs directory. This is gonna be funny. So if I go back to desktop.stm, I have a files service, okay. Oh, let's go into Emacs base. Sorry, base.scm. Need to change the name of that. And then we'll drop this in right here and then rename that to Emacs base file service. And then we will copy the files service from desktop, file service, put it into base. Now, .emacs.d init.el. We don't need local file, but I can do that too, actually, for the other file that I want. Let's see if we can give that a shot. So I'm going to copy this, drop down to the next line. Lisp/dw emacs base.el, and then I can pull dw emacs base.el. Now, I actually don't know if I want to do that. Maybe I want to just let that file be loaded directly from the path. So let's leave that out. But for this one, it's going to be a plain file like we did with that other thing, xsettingsd. Plain file. So it's basically this. Go back in here. Yeah, it's sort of the same thing. And then whatever content I want to give it is what it will be. And it looks like our container actually just spawned up nicely. So message, whoa. And put a little parenthesis at the end there. That's going to be our new init.el file. Okay, so let's take a look at what we have in here. We have an xsession file. That's to be expected, but let's check our cat.wow. What is going on with tab completion here? Config/xsettingsd. All right, this is eShell. That's why it's happening. xsettingsd/xsettingsd. All right, I'm doing this in vterm next time. Settingsd. All right, screw it. I can't deal with that. We will, whoops. Your term variable is borked. It's because I'm an eShell. Because it's not a real term. Come on, can you select so I can... vterm. Hello. Okay. This should just run straight again. There we go. Oh, exvat utils, blah, blah, blah. Error, Emacs base service type. Great. Phantom. Home services Emacs base. Emacs base service type. Let's do this public thing, because I think we had an issue with that before, maybe. What else? And hello to you, Fade. Base file service unbound variable. Base file service, yes, that's right, because it needs to be updated here to Emacs base. A couple of problems there, obviously. Here we go. Yes, yes, yes. Okay. Now let's take a look at .config xsettingsd xsettingsd.conf. That seems to be the right one. I don't know if this multiplication is the right thing, but I believe it's right because it's this deja vu crap that I don't really want, but I didn't configure it. So that's what I get by default from the service that we set up. What else? Is there an emacs.d file? Emacs, ooh, init.el. Hey, we do have that. So that init.el file that I put here is actually getting created in the configuration. So if I were to load Emacs from inside this container, you would see it. In fact, we could probably do that. If I remember, let's see, projects, sites, system crafters, content, live streams. Do we remember when that was? November 4th? What is the previous month? October? Is that what it was? Not that. October 14th. There we are. I want this display parameter. There we go. Preserve display. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to check this out with, well, did I do that? Do the container params pass through, I wonder? Probably not. Preserve. That sucks. I'm trying to run it in a container and then run Emacs to see if it works, but it's not letting me. Alejandro says, isn't it better to instruct Guix Home to clone our Emacs config Git repository? It doesn't presently do that, I think. I don't think you can do that right now. Here we are. Well, we're in terminal mode Emacs at least. This is not going to be nice. vterm control C is control X I want. Control X, control C. vterm CC. Oh, what? Never mind. All I wanted was to see if that message gets written out, but I'm sure it's fine. So if I were to go and like pave my actual configuration with this right now, it might be kind of funny. And since we're at the end of the stream, I might as well try to do it, I guess. So instead of running container, I'm going to use reconfigure. And it doesn't matter if I screw things up because I can always roll back to a previous generation. All right. So we've got everything turned off. And if I rerun Emacs now, there's a very good chance that it's going to be a white screen. Yes. Now let's look at the messages buffer. And hello world is there. So our Emacs config did actually get placed there by Guix Home. And now it's terrible. I can't look at it. So if I were to try to fix this, I guess I could just go back into the shell. I don't actually have, do I have Xterm? It's impossible to read that. And in fact, I don't want to. Emacs. Let's change the font. Load theme. Wombat. There we go. That's a little bit easier. Pull up eShell, Guix Home. What's the commands for that? I think it's generations. I think those are just rollback, right? Where is that command? Rollback. Guix Home roll dash back. Guix Home roll dash back. Let's get my Emacs config back. Okay, and then Emacs again. Oh. It's because that file is probably still there, isn't it? eShell. Let's see. What's in that emacs.d? Yeah, it's still there. And I bet it just saved something in there. Let's do it here. Come on now. That's fine. Okay. Emacs. There we go. So now we're back to where we were before, and nothing is broken. So that's good. That was too close to rmrf/. Well, it's Geeks, so if I did that, it wouldn't be a problem. Maybe. Okay, so it's basically the end of the stream. I think we did pretty good, though. If I were to go back and just sort of take a little look over my .files folder changes, there's a lot of other unrelated stuff in here, but for the Phantom, we've added a few more home services, which is a good start. I would like to see more of these things here so that, you know, like the more granular you get with your home services, the more you can sort of decide which things go into which machines, which is kind of nice. Like I would have a home Emacs mail service type so that for the machines I want to do email on, it only pulls it up there. Maybe other things like some kind of coding packages or other things like that. PipeWire obviously is PipeWire is something that I probably only want on certain machines. X settings D service, I will definitely be changing the variables for this per machine because different machines have different pixel densities on the screens. Also, I might, you know, change theme or things like that per machine. So I definitely want to move more in this direction, and we may do another stream where I work on this some more. So if you enjoyed watching this or if you found it helpful, leave a note in the comments or in the chat, and I'll do another one in the future. If you found it completely boring, on the other hand, also leave a note in the comments so that I can know not to spend a lot of time hacking my Guix Home config next time. And that's pretty much it for the day. So I actually do want to make some videos on Guix Home soon because I feel like it's been long enough, and there's a lot of value here that is easy to unlock once you understand how it works, but it's a little bit difficult gaining that initial understanding. So I want to try to demystify it a little bit. And if you watched the talk that I did at the Geeks birthday event talks, let's see, 10 years of Geeks. Yeah, I did a, let's see, no, program. Home. Yeah, Introduction to Guix Home. If you click this little TV icon here, I did a talk about it there where I sort of explain things from the ground up, but I'm going to do an actual video which covers a lot of the same topics just to like have a real video on the channel for that. So you can check that out if you want to, you know, see what that content will probably be. But I also didn't get to finish that talk there, and there was some things I wanted to go into about configuration I didn't get to do. So we'll do some more stuff on Guix Home, especially as I learn more about how I want to structure my own config. Then I'll have some actual suggestions on like best practices and whatnot. So anyway, oh, thanks, Jonathan. So until next time, thanks so much for being here. I really appreciate it. Hopefully I'll see some of you tomorrow and Sunday while I'm doing the game streaming on the Flux Harmonic channel. And until next time, happy hacking. We'll see you. Have a great weekend. Oh, thanks, Rostislav. I appreciate it. See you, folks.